Soundtrack.
Sound like grandma and grandpa.
I'm the one
Just an old married couple.
Safety. Okay, I'm going to start off if that's okay. And please don't do that thing where I say questions and then you leave it to the last minute and the last question, everyone puts their hand up. I'm going to start at the end and say, hi, Paula. How is it for you to see this work that you wrote not that long ago on the big screen and made into this wonderful film?
It's been pretty extraordinary. The speed of the whole thing, the amazing cast they assembled, and then just a shocking, terrifying, brilliant cinematic retelling of my story, which manages to be both faithful to the novel and also different in interesting and important ways.
Tate, if you don't mind me bringing,
My palms are sweaty.
just off the back of what Paula said, was it pretty obvious for you in terms of you knew what kind of thriller you wanted to make or what from this book you wanted to make from it?
Well, yeah, actually, funny enough, my first meeting with Emily and with Paula was the fact that I knew that you had to lean into the darkness and lean into the sexuality, and if you didn't, people would quickly become caricatures and it wouldn't support the story that Paula told. They were important characters, and I basically said, we are going to go for it, and everybody agreed that we should.
Hayley, Megan's a very complicated character.
Really?
I hope you don't mind me saying that. For an actress,
Every
though,
time
that.
a says that, I'm like, really? Is that what you call it? Complicated? No.
But for an actress, I imagine that's the dream, really, is it not? In terms of being able to explore a character.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think, it was a dream role, surprisingly, and also a role that I felt a lot of dread coming to work every day. I sometimes didn't want to get out of the car. I was like, I'm not going to go in there. I'm not going to face this. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, these are real issues that she's suffering, and I think that in her heart she feels that she's committed probably the greatest crime, and she hasn't forgiven herself, and so a lot of things, I think, spiral from that.
Luke, your character Scott, he's the perception of him is one thing, but how would you describe the reality of Scott?
Well, he's a man with a lot of questions and not a lot of answers, I think. And, he has everything going against him. He loses his wife. She goes missing. The last time he saw her, he had this terrible argument. He then finds out these terrible truths about her through other people, and then he's manipulated he's in a vulnerable position by someone who he believes, because he wants to believe. I don't know whether he, in another not so vulnerable state, would believe what happened, what Rachel is telling him, but I think he wants to believe it because he wants answers, and he doesn't get them, and it's sort of he's a broken soul, really, and he's tormented by the betrayal and the loss and the regret and all these horrible things, which are very common human feelings. And so as an actor, it was very easy to understand it, if not relate. I have not been through those things that he's been through, but I could understand the pain or the emotional journey that he was going on. And I felt bloody sorry for him, really, most of the time. He did have anger issues, and he did definitely have a tempestuous relationship with his wife, and he didn't understand her well enough, and he didn't know half of the things that were going on. So there was a lot to play with, really, really enjoyable but dark, but thoroughly, I enjoyed every minute of it.
Emily, congratulations! It's absolutely just the most wonderful performance. It's gorgeous. What was the appeal for you to take on Rachel and to bring her to life?
I think the appeal really, as a whole with a film, I think it's such an unusual circumstance to have your lead protagonist be female and a blackout drunk. Women are often sort of required to be held in a sort of ideal of some description, that they have to be pretty or likable or, witty or something. And I think this character, people just don't even want to breathe the same air as her. And so that sort of toxic person, physically and mentally, I'd just never gone there before. I'd never gone to the depths of that sort of despair. And her infatuation with alcohol, and the fact that it is the only relationship that she has in her life, you know, it was something that I just never explored, and I just wanted to explore it, I guess.
I'm looking at people with water bottles very differently now.
You should.
Very differently.
You should.
Okay, we'll open up to the floor, please. Who has the first question for us this morning? Gentleman in the middle, hello.
I might ask you the question about other people. She asked me to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about your writing process, with a specific focus on the results of the twists, and do you develop the story to meet the twist, or does it happen as you go along?
Well, with The Girl on the Train, I knew where I was going to get to. I knew who'd done it, and I knew basically the architecture of the story. But I prefer to not plan out in great detail, because I think actually the best writing comes when you're in the moment, and it's spontaneous, and ideas just come to you, and it's serendipity, and it's fantastic. So I like to leave some space for things to develop. And so the way the ending of the book plays out changed a lot as I was writing it. Some of the characters, Anna in particular, changed a lot while I was writing it.
Thank you. Did you have a question in the front, please?
Yeah, all of the characters in the film are troubled or unlikable in some way. I think Luke just touched on this a little bit, but I wondered, the rest of the cast, what you identify with in any of your characters.
Me on a Friday night, yes. I wouldn't say that I identified with Rachel. She did feel, hopefully, rather alien to me and my life and how I go about my life. But yet, I think if acting really is the ultimate form of empathy, I truly just had to understand her, and so it's never been a concern of mine as to whether somebody I'm playing is likable. I think you just have to make them credible, and so that was the main intention, was just to try and understand her as deeply as possible. And she is somebody at the end of the day who's taken life setbacks harder than others, and that's not for me to sort of judge if I'm playing her. And I think that what I learned about addiction, when I learned about her, it was really frightening. It is a world that we wanted to represent fully and very truthfully, and so I did a lot of research on it and understood her even further after doing that.
Luke, do you want to pick up on Scott?
Yeah, relate. Identified with... Yeah, I think I identified quite a lot with him. I mean, it is, like you said, it's a empathy, isn't it? Acting is sort of getting under the skin and putting yourself in their position and dealing with the same emotions that they might deal with. And how would you deal with it? You know, I probably wouldn't deal with it exactly as he did, but I think I'd probably deal with quite a lot of it, quite similar actually. After a certain amount of lies being told me, I think I'd lose the plot, you know, and smash a few more bottles against walls, frankly.
If you can aim better.
All right, thanks for bringing that up. For such a large budget, we only had 4 sugar bottles.
We only had 4, and he got it on the last one. There was a lot of pressure.
All on Emily's hangover makeup. You know, it's
Yeah.
a fortune.
Hayley, what about for you with Megan?
I think that it took a great deal of courage for us to play all of these characters. We had to go to some pretty dark places, and for me, I don't think that it was necessarily that I could draw any comparisons from my personality to hers. Actually, Paula came to set one day and said, "You were exactly what I imagined for Megan." And I remember thinking, oh my God, what a terrible thing to say.
I didn't mean physically, I have to say. I didn't mean I think you're a terrible person.
But I think that the draw for me was to explore a personality that I don't necessarily relate to, and there was a lot of adrenaline that came from playing the role. So maybe there's something about the adrenaline that I enjoyed, or maybe that's my relationship with Megan. It was quite an adrenaline rush for sure, I think. So yeah, I don't really necessarily draw comparisons. It was terrifying, and I think that's what made it exciting.
Gentleman in the front row.
Yeah,
curious to know the book is set in London and the film is set in New York. Why the translation of setting?
At me. So that choice predated my involvement with the film, but I know that Erin Cressida Wilson, I think that, it's my understanding, she made that decision and it was supported. But what's funny is that with the finished film and looking at Paula's book and looking at our film, you realize more and more that the story is in the minds of these people and on a train and in their personal spaces. And you think about it being moved to New York, yet the city is barely represented. In fact, you really, for a few chances, don't even know where it is. And I think Emily, with our decision to keep her accent as it was, I even found it to add more to the isolation that this woman is feeling. And for me, you think about this woman at the bottom of the barrel and broke, and how far away she is from home.
Thank you. Lady on the edge here? Not on the edge, like on the edge, just on the edge.
She might be. By the end of this press conference, you never know.
A really quick question to Paula, if that's all right. I just wanted to pick up on that, whether you, working on the film, gave you any sense of whether or not commuters in the UK and the US are better served by their rail services?
I didn't actually work on the film, so I can't give you an answer to that. But I think rail services in the US are pretty good, but I don't have great experience of it.
Can I ask one more? Sorry.
Yeah.
Emily, briefly last night you spoke about the potential competitiveness and cruelty between women in the domestic sphere. And I wondered if you had any hope that that was improving. I was thinking particularly of Andrea Levson pulling out of the leadership contest after saying that being at the edge.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's something that is that should be talked about. I mean, I think that I think we all need to be much kinder to each other, whether you're a man or a woman in this world. But I think I do believe that there is a tendency towards women being a bit judgmental of each other, particularly in the domestic environment, whether you can sort of keep a man, or which I hate that phrase, or you know, whether you breastfeed, whether you don't, whether you want to have children, whether you don't, whether you can have children. I could go on and on. I think that women are sometimes made to feel to be rather defensive of their decisions that they make when it comes to family life, and I don't think that's right. And I think that to each their own in every aspect when it comes to family. And you know, nobody knows the ins and outs of a decision and why it's made, and so we can't be too harsh about it. So I do think this film captures that element and of women who are sort of pitted against each other, but who ultimately unite. I actually find it. I think the mistake is to say that these women are all victims, when actually I think that ultimately it's quite an empowering film for women. And I lost my train of thought because I have baby brain. Apologies. Anyway, I'll just end it there.
The way that I think, Tate, the way that you end the film with Rachel and Anna not saying a word to each other, just their presence together and the contact they make, you know, just looking at each other, says so. It's really powerful. It says much more than any words could, I think, as well.
Yeah, thank you, and that, you know, furthered what Paula did with the ending of her novel. There was not this, you know, flushed out scene of them coming up with their story. It was left for you to guess what had happened, and then you just got a kiss of that. And I think cinematically, it translated better for there not to be a post-murderous conversation, and just let what they learned and throughout their own lives, including Megan, come to the surface.
Great. And I see lady at the back there.
Hi, this is a question for Tate. I was just wondering, considering so many people read the novel and it was such an enormous success, how you approach making a film where a large amount of the audience is going to know the twist, and it's such a brilliant twist, and it's so shocking. But did you bear that in mind when you were making it?
Well, yes. You know, you bear it in mind, but then you just, as I stated earlier, you really, really focus on the characters and their work, and to where you make the characters so compelling. Although this is a thriller and you're trying to figure out what happened, if the characters are so strong and so deep and compelling as all these wonderful actors made them, not that you're forgetting that you're trying to figure out who did something, but it's parallel with the inner struggles. And we just focused on the truth. And the truth often trumps the device of a movie.
Lady in the second row.
I think when I was setting it out, I started with Rachel, and I started to wonder why someone would have got herself into this mess at this point. And I know people who've struggled with infertility and the impact that can have. And then once that had become like a theme, that issue of motherhood, and these are women who are at an age at which questions about motherhood are pushed to the fore by your family, by the media, by whatever, and incredibly private decisions seem to become public property. And that's kind of what I was exploring. It was the way these women are handling that. They're at an odd juncture in their lives. For example, none of them are working, and they're all from economic circumstance, from getting drunk in the office, what have you, from just having a baby. They're feeling constrained and trapped in various ways, and it was really that I was unpicking in the book.
Thank you.
Oh, well, of course, yeah, I think it's something that women experience all the time, yes.
Next question. You have another one? Go for it. Yeah?
Sorry, Taylor. Can you discuss your influences on the film? Particularly, I couldn't see too much into it, but there's a bit of a blurring effect on Thomas, and there's this shadow play, this kind of space, this kind of thing. Can you talk about the inspirations and influences involved?
Well, we, of course, in preparation, I went to the usual suspects for inspiration. Hitchcock, Bergman, a lot of wonderful films. But I had a wonderful collaborator with Charlotte Bruce. That's not how you pronounce her name. I don't think anyone can. And we had a lot of discussions about a mood and tone and the depth, the color. And really it boiled down to camera work representing each character. We're in Rachel's head. We don't know if what she's thinking or saying is right, and that lent itself to a lot of handheld work and close-ups, a lot of close-ups in this film, because we are in these people's heads, and it didn't really merit the sweeping wide masters and the traditional camera work. It just wouldn't support the material. And as I said, I wanted this film to be dark and moody and unsettling and at times creepy, and that was our focus.
Any more questions? Oh, there we go. Straight into you. Second row lady there, and then I'll come to you in the orange top. Thank you.
So you work on the Directorial as well, which is another female representative. Do you particularly enjoy working on female narrators in this sort of life?
I'm asked this question a lot, and the answer is absolutely. But I don't seek them out. This is just the universe keeps putting good material in my path, and twice now it has been with 3 female leads telling a story. But I do think that female characters, they have more going for them in a way in which, based on your questions for Paula and for Emily, there's challenges that women face that men don't. And with that set of challenges in the real world put up against a character with the challenges in their story, you can't help but compound them. And I think they're just more interesting. And often I've been presented with material to direct, and I've often said, what if we make her a woman? And I did that with Allison Janney's character as Detective Riley. And I put her in everything, and she's great. I'm sorry, Paula, but it's true. I guess I just corrected myself. I do like female characters, perhaps more, except for Luke.
Lady in the orange top.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Emily, you just don't know having baby brain. Just almost how you balance having this massive body to grow and being a mom.
well, to be honest, I don't want to sort of stake it out as being that, you know, my job as a working mother is any harder than anyone else's who has to go to work and has 2 children. So I think it's just a juggle, I guess. You just sort of do it. I think you just take each day as it comes, because everyone had warned me that 1 kid is great, but 2's a zoo, and it is a zoo in my house right now. So I don't know, I think it's probably the same for everybody. I think it is a day-by-day play for us all, you know. And I think, in a way, having children has been so wonderful in that it not only cracks your heart open in a big way, so I'm sure I can access a lot more since becoming a mother as an actor, but I think truly it makes me very specific about what I choose to do and when I choose to work. And but I'm lucky because I think a lot of women, when they go back to work, they have to go back to work to support the family or whatever, or just because they want to go back to work full time, or that's just their job. Like my sister's a literary agent, and she wakes up to 800 to 1,000 emails a day, and she has a young boy who's not even 2, and so when she decided to go back to work, it was a massive decision, whereas I have these rather fortunate chunks of time off in between where I can intensively be with my children, but it's not the same for everybody.
Thank you. And we've probably got time for these last 2 questions, if that's okay. So we'll go to the lady at the back first, because you've already had 2.
Settle down. Keeping it a secret.
Keeping it a secret. Well, I think that Luke and Justin, who I have a couple of tussles with, were a bit nervous about it, and so they were very kind. But I don't think I anticipated, maybe you and I both felt this, how physical this role was. Actually, it turned out to be so very physical, and playing a drunk and
So emotional that it becomes
so
physical.
emotional that it becomes physical, I think. And so it was a job that wore me out, and I'm sure my fragile state added to that. But I think I told Tate the whole time, who was desperate to have a drink and just sort of unwind after the end.
This is so boring. I've been wanting to work with Emily
Yeah,
Blunt
he was
forever.
like, I hear she's really fun.
And all
like,
she
you know,
wants is an omelet. Every 3 minutes.
I did not pass on a snack. I'll tell you that much. And I sort of like played my card. I was like, Tate, I can't go for a drink. So, you know, when I'm playing an alcoholic, I just really need to be focused and like not drink. And I was pretending to be method. I was like desperate for a glass of wine after this job that I couldn't. Yeah.
The gentleman in the red, and then we'll come to you.
Question to Tate. What was it like collaborating with Danny Elfman in terms of the score to the film?
It was a dream. It was such a great conversation because, you know, he's such a master and his work speaks for itself. And I had chosen a temp, as one does. And, you know, I thought Danny Elfman, big, lush, Burton, big music. And I had my first phone call with him, and I said, what do you think about the temp? So a lot of it was synthetic, and he said, I think it's exactly what needs to be done, and I don't get to do this very often because everybody wants Danny Elfman, and we had a blast. We took chances. I said, go as crazy as you want, and then we'll just dial it back in, and he's fantastic, and became a great friend as a result.
Thank you. And then last question. We'll start and finish with you,
You
sir.
got 3?
So, yeah. Hey, the rest of them are being lazy, so it's fine. It's like,
God. Looking forward to seeing you in Only God Forgives at Free Fire. Can you tell us about being a little virtual? What happened?
Well, Only God Forgives was just one of those very nice positions to be in where you get offered 2 things at the same time. And I had to juggle which one was right. And they both were great scripts and great directors, but inevitably one had to be dropped. And it was at the same time as I got The Hobbit. So, you know, it just is a little, you know, what do you do? A trilogy, Peter Jackson, a year in New Zealand, killing Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, the dragon, you know, or doing this very cool indie with an amazing director who had Drive coming out, which hadn't come out at the point. And trust me, when that came out, I did take a big swallow and go, holy shit, you know.
I literally just lactated.
Is there a baby?
On me!
God, they're padded. Anyway, so that's why I didn't do that. And Free Fire was another big juggle. It was Ben, who's a really good friend of mine, and I got offered Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, and I really wanted to sing and do something happy. Honestly, it came down to just wanting to smile instead of growl, and I'd done so much anguish and pained characters, killing people, you know, biting their necks. I just he understood completely, by the way, and it was fine. And so so that's basically it, really.
Thank you for your honesty, guys. Thank you for your answers, and thank you very much for your questions, guys.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for your patience earlier. Thank you.
My friend, when a baby cries, they move. She said they just actually move. Like
They move like they grow. Yeah, it's really weird.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.